This March, the madness might hit differently for UNLV fans. A failure to capture the Mountain West title leaves the Lady Rebs out of the NCAA tournament, rather competing in the WBIT. And then there's the Runnin Rebels. Head coach Kevin Kruger is out, and so is top scorer DJ Thomas, who's entered the transfer portal. How do we get back to competing in March Madness? How do we get back to those glory days? The panel has the answers. Let's do this thing. Sin City Beat starts right now.
From Las Vegas, this is Sin City Beat.
Well, hello there and welcome to Sin City Beat. I'm your host, Mike Davis. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Sin City Beat is the show that dissects the Vegas sports world through the eyes of the sports reporters and storytellers leading the charge. Joining the action today, we got Mike Ramala, sports reporter with the Las Vegas Sun, our very own sports reporter here at Fox 5 Las Vegas, Mariah Janos, and the legend, Fox 5 anchor Jason Feinberg is back with us.
How come her lighting is better than mine?
You know what? We're going to work on that.
Yeah, let's work on that. Yeah.
But it's so great to have you all here with us. So as I alluded to in the show open, it's definitely a dark time for UNLV basketball fans. The glory days of the Runnin Rebels seem so far gone and hard to reclaim. Now, the program is on its search for a new head coach after parting ways with Kevin Kruger. After 4 seasons and a record of 76 and 55 and failing to reach the NCAA tournament all those seasons, UNLV athletic director Eric Harper said in this statement about the move, quote, "Our expectation is to contend for and win championships. After evaluating the program as a whole, I believe a change is necessary to achieve these goals," end quote. So Mariah Janos, what is your initial reaction to the firing of Coach Kruger?
I was not surprised, and I thought he would have been gone sooner, frankly. And listen, I like Kevin as a guy, great person, but every single time I talked to him, there was just no fire, no energy there. I mean, yeah, he got a couple texts down the stretch, but where was that from the jump? And with these players, you need that internal motivation, and they didn't have that from Kevin Kruger. Again, great guy, but it just seemed like he wasn't even fully sold on the team that he had and the cards that he was dealt. And in these situations, sometimes you have to make the best with what you've got.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he struggled to do that at times.
It's fascinating you go that direction with your reaction because, yes, listen, we love Lon Kruger, we love Kevin Kruger, the Kruger family, they're great people. But Jason, it's fascinating as somebody who's an Arizona fan, you know, the old days of the Lute Olsons, you know, those types of coaches who have that firepower, that will to win. It's such an interesting thing, and we've seen it now with Hurley at UConn. So do you think we do need a guy that's leading the program that is cut from that same type of cloth, that kind of domineering kind of personality?
Yeah, look, first of all, I still have my Lute Olson wig that we all wore for home games. It was brilliant. It was amazing. And it did get the student body.
He had did he have the white
silver,
hair?
He had the white hair.
It was almost like a Thomas Jefferson kind of.
Yeah. But also there were such great coaches back. There still are today, but back then there was legendary coaches. And I actually went to school. I was in college the golden years for UNLV, which was great for UNLV. Okay for Arizona, because Arizona would get beaten by UNLV, but they would also do well. But I remember those glory days, and I have not seen the Thomas and Mack look like that ever since. It's never looked like that. And let me tell you, it was an amazing experience to come to the Thomas and Mack because Arizona played them. And to see what was happening there with the fireworks. Now it's just a completely different scene, and kind of like what you said, there's just like no energy and enthusiasm, and that trickles down.
It's fascinating. Mike Ramala, you wrote a great piece this morning on the Las Vegas Sun. I was reading it online. I mean, I feel like a true intellectual now after reading this. It was a very, thorough piece. But tell us, I mean, your reaction to this. You're constantly covering this team. Where do we go from here? Did you see this coming? Because I think a lot of people thought it was going to be a 50-50 kind of situation.
Yeah, I saw it coming, and like as Mariah said, a lot of people saw this coming. I think Kevin Kruger himself saw it coming. He was a different guy this year. Last year was the year. I think that's what it comes down to. Last year's roster was a slam dunk NCAA tournament roster. They got off to a slow start. They came close. They didn't make it. They ended up in the NIT. They were playing good at the end of the year, but missing the NCAA tournament last year with that team,
right.
It sort of took the wind out of the sails of the program. They brought Kevin back for a 4th season, but it just wasn't the same from the beginning of the year. Guys came in out of shape. Their off-season program wasn't great. They got off to a slow start. You could see it have an effect on Kevin Kruger just when he would talk to the media or he's running practice. It was just sort of run down, and it was a hard, long season. I think most people expected this to happen at the end of the year as soon as the season concluded. So not much of a shock, and now you've got to find a way to sort of turn the page on that and sort of sweep everything out and start over again.
Okay, and we're coming up in the next block, we're actually going to be talking who should replace Coach Kruger and how do we replenish the roster with these 3 players, or 4, I should say, who are already entering the portal. We'll tackle those questions next.
You're watching Sin City Beat.
If anyone bleeds the UNLV Scarlet Red, it's certainly Kevin Kruger. Not only a coach, but a former point guard for the Rebels on a team in 2007 that made the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. With who coaching that squad? Yes, his father, the great Lon Kruger. But now the search is on for a new head coach, Mike Ramala. Who should be the first guy on this list to replace Kevin Kruger?
Well, probably can't ask Lon. I don't think.
You don't think? Yeah.
I don't think he would be interested in the job, though he's qualified. You know, there are candidates available, and for what I'm hearing, the job is attractive. It's not a bad spot to be in. Their NIL is in a good position. The name that I personally would put at the top of my list is Craig Smith. He was the head coach at Utah State for 3 years. Got him to the NCAA tournament 3 times. 1 year the tournament was canceled, but they were in.
Yeah.
And he moved up to Utah, not as good there, around 500. He just got fired at the end of this season. He's available. That's a guy who has won in the Mountain West, dominated in the Mountain West. If you could bring him back, I think that's a good way to restart the program. Maybe not like the flashiest hire, but that's a guy who is proven to do it. If you want to make the NCAA tournament, that's your guy.
Well, let me ask you this, because you posed a lot of good questions and gave a lot of insight on just how the NIL is going to impact and reflect this coaching search now in your piece. So we have 4 players that have entered the portal right now. Portal, I'm going to pronounce that well. James Evans Jr., DJ Thomas, Jaden Henley, and Rob Whaley Jr. So 4 guys who have entered the portal. Mike, how does NIL influence what we're seeing now in college basketball? And you know, one of the things you pointed out in your piece is that, listen, whoever comes in next wants to make sure that there's going to be money in place to attract players. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, it's the transfer portal and recruiting at the college level. You have high school recruiting, which is still a person-to-person sort of relationship. College, if you're going into the portal to get transfers, that's free agency. They just want to know how much you're going to pay them. Some of these kids don't even want to take visits before they come or commit. It's just, what is the check going to be? That's the reality. So if UNLV can cut someone a check for $500,000, you can get a replacement for DJ Thomas. You can get a replacement for Jaden Henley. If your NIL is there and you hire a coach in time, the portal opens on March 24th. You've got to move quickly with the hire. But if you've got the money to spend, you can replace those guys. It doesn't have to be a 3-4 year rebuild. They can be in the NCAA tournament this coming season if they get a move on, if they spend money, if they bring in the right players, if they have a good coach who can, work the X's and O's on the court.
A lot of
but we've seen so many teams do it. We've seen so many teams do it in 1 year.
And it seems to me, Jason, what happens is now it's you either get the coach who has proven himself at a lower level school, right, and then you elevate him, or you go for a guy who's looking for a rebirth kind of thing, a Tom Crean, one of those types of guys. Who do you think would fit best at UNLV? What type of personality? Who comes to mind for you?
Well, you mentioned that Lon Kruger probably wouldn't take the job, and this could be a little bit, I don't know, maybe it's too close to the cloth, but what about Chris Crutchfield from Omaha, who was an assistant to Lon Kruger at Oklahoma, brought in Buddy Hield, and also was an assistant at Michigan State. and then moved over to Omaha.
So he's got
where
pedigree.
He does, and he has a little affiliation with Lon. So I was looking at him. I looked at a couple different articles, including, I got to ask you one that you put in your article. Sure. Totally out of the box. Lindy LaRocque.
Stop.
I'm
sorry I didn't read your
stop.
article, but Lindy should coach the Runnin Rebels.
There was a list that I came up with. I said, here's 9 potential candidates. And I think if you're Eric Harper, what's the harm in saying, hey, Lindy, what do you think about this men's program? Well, do you have any ideas?
Mariah, how do you think that would play out?
Honestly, you want to talk about fire? She dropped an F-bomb in the post-game presser just the other day.
Trying to get her team into the tournament.
She's got the firepower. She's got those rants that she'll go on to fire up her team, and you've seen her team respond to them very well, especially coming out of the half if they're down, or even the quarter. If you looked at the quarterfinal game that they just played against Boise State, coming back, staging that late comeback, she knows how to get her team locked in when they don't show up to perform, and you've seen it. It's been excellence the last 4 years. Obviously, they came up short this season. That was a bummer, but if you look at the whole body of work, like she told the selection committee to do, it speaks for itself.
So you just went from, in like 30 seconds,
No,
from stop, Mike
literally.
stop, to yes, let's hire Lindy.
Hold
So
on.
thank you.
We're going to be able to
to
stay on Lindy
yeah.
LaRocque because you guys provided the greatest transition for me possible. It's not only doom and gloom here on Sin City Beat, as you can see, because there's still more basketball to be played, and it's for Lindy LaRocque and the Lady Rebs. We got more on that after these words. Welcome back to Sin City Beat. Well, after missing out on the NCAA tournament, the Lady Rebs are locked in for the Women's Basketball Invitation Tournament, also known as the WBIT. In round 1, they're a number 2 seed where they're going to take on Hawaii. Obviously, a loss to San Diego State in the Mountain West semifinal was damaging for the program's postseason hopes initially, yet Coach Lindy LaRocque led the team to a 4th consecutive season as Mountain West champs. This is the time of year when everybody's either happy or they're saying they've been snubbed. So we got to talk about this. Mariah, was this team, the Lady Rebels, were they truly snubbed from the NCAA tournament?
It's hard to say whether or not they were snubbed. I don't know if they really were. We look at the Mountain West historically, doesn't really have a lot of respect when it comes to the selection committee and what goes on. And I know that was a big gripe that Lindy LaRocque had in, I guess, technically their postseason press conference after that semifinal loss to San Diego State. She was really fired up, really frustrated. As I mentioned in the previous block, her argument was that you need to look at a full body of work. You need to look at the past 3 years. They've advanced to the tournament. They have dominated the Mountain West tournament in years past. And this year, for her, she chalked it all up to the pressure really getting to her squad. A lot of seniors wanting to go out on a high note. They weren't able to do it. But, you know, even the San Diego State head coach really gave them their flowers and said they should be in the NCAA tournament. Lindy went out. She made the schedule more difficult this season. You know, they're playing Arizona, Oklahoma, Baylor, Northwestern. And while maybe they didn't win those games, it's still a strength of schedule boost right there. So, you know, they don't typically do great on a national level, but just with what they've done in years past and the respect that they have earned, especially in this conference, it is a bummer that they couldn't.
I mean,
get
listen,
any
the
looks.
Mountain West just doesn't get a ton of respect nationwide. One thing that does get a lot of respect here is Mike Ramallah and his writing beyond Mariah Jonas.
So.
And one of the great things you can do is you can enjoy reading the Las Vegas Sun of Mike Ramallah with a great cup of coffee. And you can use a coffee mug like an Ed Bernstein coffee mug like that. That's what I do when I read Mike Ramallah. Mike, let me talk to you about this because Lindy LaRocque, I mean, yes, as Jason alluded to, you know, she's one of your potential candidates, a dark horse that should be a candidate. This is a local person. You know, we were speaking about her last time. Grew up here, was, you know, a genius. She played basketball at Stanford. She was, you know, even a valedictorian here, you know, so she's a great candidate. But from this team as a whole, I mean, the thing that people kept talking about the Lady Rebs is, yes, they're always doing well in the Mountain West. If they win the Mountain West Championship, they get that automatic bid, but they can't seem to win that tournament game. once they get that punch ticket. So, that is a puzzling concept in itself.
Yeah, so I think they were closer than I thought to being on the bubble. They were one of the first 4 teams out in the final projections, even after they lost to San Diego State. I think there were ultimately 2 things that probably worked against them. One was the regular season finale. They went up to Wyoming, which was the number 3 team in the conference, and they lost that game. It was a close game. They lost it. For UNLV, it really had no meaning. They had already locked up the number 1 seed. They were the regular season champs. It was a meaningless game. But if you win it, how much closer does that put you to, being on the on the right side of the bubble? And then the second factor is they've been to the NCAA tournament 3 years in a row. They haven't won there. And it's not supposed to factor into the decision, but I got to feel like if they had pulled an upset in one of those games and they had actually made some noise in the NCAA tournament, maybe you get the benefit of the doubt the 4th time around. Hey, they're on the bubble.
Yeah.
But we've put them in, but we've seen them in before, and they can give someone a good game. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And they didn't have that this time around. So I think those are probably the 2 things that were working against them when it really came down to it. They were closer than I thought, though.
I mean, Jason, you remember these years when it was the heyday of basketball here. But long before Golden Knights, Raiders, all this stuff, it was always about the Runnin Rebels and college basketball in this city. Oh, yeah. From your estimation, what is it that we need to do just to get back to that place and to have those times? Because during a month like we're in right now, that's what everybody's craving.
We all need to bite on towels, and we need to find somebody with the last name Tarkanian that knows a thing about basketball. Because we haven't even mentioned Jerry Tarkanian this whole show, and he was the god of back in the day here in Vegas. So it all comes down to coaching, getting back to the women's side. The Mountain West and UNLV are not doing themselves any favors. I don't think more than one team has gotten in on the women's side from the Mountain West recently. I think it's always just been UNLV.
Yeah, San Diego State's in this.
It's a 1 bid league.
Yeah,
it's a 1 bid league. All these teams are fighting for 1 bid.
Right.
UNLV was sort of an outlier this season. Yeah. And last year they might have been able to sneak in if they had lost in the conference title game. But other than that,
it's a shame because when you see what we're going to be talking about in our next block, all the stuff with the brackets. I mean, when the SEC gets 14 teams in there, it's pretty insane stuff. Sure. So, the Mountain West needs a little bit of love. But next, we're going to be talking brackets. Who's the panel picking to win for March Madness? That's coming up after these words. All right, it's bracket time, and whether you're Dick Vitale or have never watched a basketball game in your life, everyone seems to be filling out one of these babies, a bracket, at least for your office pool. Now, Mike Ramallah, I want to mention this to you because here at Fox 5, we always do a bracket. Last year, I actually came in first. Jason Feinberg came in second. So Jason and I are always neck and neck with a lot of this stuff, even fantasy sports. Mariah, I don't know if you participated.
I did, and I was doing really well until I wasn't, which I guess was the case for most people. But I feel like I finished closer to the top.
Okay, you probably did.
I think. But I can't remember, honestly. That's how much weight it really
So I'm going to go to Jason first to hear who you're picking and everything. But does the Las Vegas Sun do this as well? Is there an office pool?
We do. I don't fill one out. But the person you should be shouting out is not the winner, although congratulations. You got to shout out the person who collects the money, organizes everything, handles the payouts. No one wants to do it.
For us, that's a guy named Stage 5 Klinger, Matt Klinger. Yeah. All right, so Jason, tell us, who do you have winning this baby?
So until I'm proven wrong, I'm going with Duke. I mean, that's kind of like how but then again, that's how I bet the big game. I said I'm going to take the Chiefs until they prove me wrong. Well, we saw what happened there.
But that's a good time to be wrong, though. You want to be wrong with it.
Right, exactly. Right. So as long as Cooper Flagg is healthy, which it looks like, they probably don't even need him for the first game or two.
You and I were saying in the back office, he should probably sit out the first game and just get a little healthy.
I basically have all 4 number 1 seeds. It's real boring for me but I would say of the number 1 seeds, Houston and Auburn are the most likely to screw up.
Yeah.
And I think Florida and Duke would be the ones that would advance.
It's interesting. It's a weird season. Last year was kind of easy. I mean, UConn was just a powerhouse all season long, so you were kind of taking them. But Mike, I mean, what are your thoughts? I know you're a big Rick Pitino guy, right?
Yeah, well, if they had listened to me 10 years ago and just hired Rick Pitino, UNLV we would not be having this discussion today.
I think that's a guy who's got juice.
That was back when he was radioactive.
I
said, just suck it up, hire Rick Pitino. But anyways, I do like their team now. I think they're the most fun to watch. If you're sort of a sicko like me, they have the #1 defense. It's fun to watch. They cannot shoot at all. They're like last in the country in three-point shooting. They can't score, but they defend like crazy.
Yeah.
So they're going to grind out some games. Anyone could beat them, but I would enjoy seeing them make a deep run. The other team is, Florida is a buzzsaw at this point in the year.
They have a great offense. I mean, that whole region, Florida, UConn, Oklahoma, Memphis, Maryland, even Drake is an 11 seed, Kansas, Arkansas, St. John. So you got Calipari, Bill Self, Pitino. I mean, it's just that's what the beauty of March Madness is, really that region. Tell me, Mariah, what are you thinking? I know your beloved Orangemen are not participating this year.
No, they are not, but I'm going with another school that has orange and blue colors, and that is Florida right there. They're on a heater right now. 12 of the last 13 they're winning. They've got a healthy 9-deep rotation. I really like them, and I think, like you mentioned, if Auburn and Houston get bounced out of the way, it's a clearer path for them. So why not? Let's go with the SEC.
All right, we'll see what happens. I have a lot of #1s in there as well, but I'm going to go with Pitino as well over Florida, although I like them a lot. Guys, we're wishing you the best of luck in March Madness with your brackets. For Jason Feinberg, Mike Ramala, Mariah Janos, I am Mike Davis. We'll see you next time here on Sin City Beat. Good luck with those brackets.
And if Arizona loses in the first round, I'm taking the shirt off of my. Oh, there you go, my back.
You gotta do this.